Good morning, distinguished guests, members of the faculty, and my dear friends. A very warm welcome to Day 3 of Conventus 2025, the annual management conclave of IMI Delhi. The word Conventus finds its roots in Latin, meaning coming together. True to its name, Conventus is a platform that brings together academia, industry, and policymakers to exchange ideas and shape the dialogue on the future of business and economics. My co-host Abhinaya and I, Charmi, are delighted to take you through the economic summit of Conventus 2025. This year, Conventus is structured around the theme When the Next Generation Guides the Boardroom.
Conventus 2025 arrives at a defining moment where a new generation is reshaping what success truly means. No longer driven by titles or tradition, they blend ambition with purpose and demand authenticity in every sphere, as employees, consumers, and policymakers. Their vision of equity, balance, and inclusion is transforming the very fabric of leadership. Conventus 2025 stands as a testament to this change, a forum where legacy meets evolution and the voices of today craft the boardrooms of tomorrow.
In the boldness of this next generation lies the blueprint for relevance, resilience, and growth. With that, let's take a look at what Conventus 2025 truly stands for. We would now like to play the Conventus 25 theme video.
India, the nation of young hearts, stands at a new dawn, brimming with a vibrant generation, restless yet rooted, bold yet balanced, not waiting for a seat at the table, but redefining the very room at large.
As boardrooms evolve and the sidelines become the stage, we find ourselves at a pivotal point where lines between hierarchy and harmony blur, and wisdom finds its echo in youth.
Learnings from history, hope for the present, and dream for the future. They have it all.
A nation has come of age, and at Conventus 2025, we are writing its story. Here, courage is the currency and ideas are influence. So let's join hands to welcome the emerging dawn, to anticipate, shape, and embrace the change that will define our future.
The Economic Summit this year is a reflection of our changing times. The global economy is no longer defined by linear progress. It's a dynamic system where energy transitions, ecological priorities, and intelligence-driven innovation shape competitiveness and sustainability alike. This year, the Economics Club of IMI Delhi proudly presents its theme, Economic Growth at the Crossroads, Navigating Energy, Ecology, and Intelligence. As nations strive for resilience and sustainability, these three pillars are emerging as the driving forces of the global economy. Conventus 25 invites us to reflect, rethink, and reimagine how growth can remain inclusive, intelligent, and ecologically balanced in this new era.
The 21st century economy stands at a defining moment. The traditional engines of growth, capital, and labor are now accompanied by three transformative forces shaping our global future: energy, ecology, and intelligence. Energy defines resilience, cost, and access, determining how economies compete. Ecology influences consumption, urbanization, and sustainability, redefining how we grow. Intelligence, powered by technology, data, and human capability, fuels productivity, innovation, and competitiveness. Together, these pillars are rewriting the rules of economic progress.
At Conventus 2025, we explore how these forces converge to shape a new economic order, one that balances growth with sustainability, efficiency with equity, and innovation with inclusion.
Through today's discussion, we will reflect on how to navigate the crossroads in order to build economies that are both future ready and resilient. Our discussions today will focus on how energy, ecology, and intelligence are redefining productivity and reshaping the way nations pursue prosperity. With that, we would now like to play the Economic Summit theme video to set the tone of the event.
India has now surpassed Japan to become the world's fourth largest economy, citing data from the International Monetary Fund.
Andhra Pradesh has backed its biggest project yet, with Google's first ever AI hub being set up in Vizag, in Visakhapatnam. And this is a game changer deal for Andhra Pradesh.
साथियों, भारत को ग्लोबल मैन्युफैक्चरिंग हब बनाना हर भारतीय की एस्पिरेशन है और दुनिया की भारत से एक्सपेक्टेशन भी है। आज आप देखिए, इसके लिए देश में एक रिवॉल्यूशन जैसा चल रहा है। आज देश में एमएसएमईज को जितना सपोर्ट मिल रहा है उतना पहले कभी नहीं। आज शहरों में प्लग एंड प्ले इंडस्ट्रियल पार्क बनाए जा रहे हैं, इकोनॉमिक कॉरिडोर्स बनाए जा रहे हैं, क्रिटिकल मिनरल्स के प्रोडक्शन को बढ़ावा दिया जा रहा है।
According to the April 2025 edition of the IMF's World Economic Outlook, the Indian economy is expected to grow by 6.2% in 2025 and 6.3% in 2026. That maintains a solid lead over all other regional peers, certainly. And also, now the expectation is that India will surpass Germany, which is the third largest economy in the world, in the next couple of years to become the third largest economy globally.
It gives us immense pleasure to welcome our moderator for the session, Ms. Anushri Sharma, Manager, Policy and Insights at The Economist Impact. With a decade of experience in journalism, research, and advisory, Ms. Sharma has led numerous projects at the intersection of public policy, economic competitiveness, and sustainability. Her deep expertise in policy evaluation and strategic insights will help steer today's discussion on navigating energy, ecology, and intelligence for resilient economic growth. As a gesture of gratitude, may I now invite Ms. Gurleen Mangat, Joint Secretary of the Economics Club, to kindly felicitate Ms. Anushri Sharma for gracing us with her presence. Thank you, ma'am. We look forward to your guidance as you steer today's discussion.
As we begin this much awaited session, we are deeply honored to introduce our distinguished panelists for the day. We are delighted to welcome Mr. Abhijit Mukhopadhyay, Senior Research Consultant at Chintan Research Foundation. With over 23 years of experience in economic and policy research, Mr. Mukhopadhyay has worked extensively on monetary policy, banking, trade and development, including published work on rare earths and critical minerals for India's auto and EV sectors. His deep insights into structural transformation and institutional reforms have helped shape policy dialogues across global think tanks, media, and academia. We are honored to have you with us, sir. As a remark of gratitude and respect, we now invite Ms. Sharma to extend a warm welcome to Mr. Abhijit.
We are delighted to welcome Ms. Akshata Kallur, Associate Vice President and Economist at the National Investment and Infrastructure Fund. A trained macroeconomist, her diverse experience across academia, government, and the private sector brings a unique lens to India's investment landscape. She has worked with the Ministry of Finance and the National Institute of Public Finance and Policy, contributing to policy design in public finance, infrastructure, and public private partnerships. At NIIF, she leads macroeconomic research, guiding investments driving India's growth, especially in infrastructure and energy transition. We are honored to have you with us, ma'am. We now request Ms. Anushri Sharma to present a token of appreciation to Ms. Akshata.
We are privileged to welcome Ms. Anushri Bansal, Senior Economist at the Mastercard Economics Institute. With over 2 decades of experience in applied economics, policy analysis, and digital finance, she has been instrumental in shaping research on inclusive growth, consumer spending trends, and digital transformation across emerging economies. Her strategic understanding of how data and innovation intersect to drive resilient economic ecosystems adds immense value to today's discourse. We are honored to have you with us, ma'am. We now request Ms. Anushri Sharma to present token of gratitude to Ms. Anushri Bansal.
We are honored to welcome Dr. Manoranjan Sharma, Chief Economist at Informerix Ratings, with over 2 decades of leadership in banking, finance, and macroeconomic research. A former Chief Economist at Canara Bank, he has authored several books and over 350 publications, with his research featured in leading global institutions such as Harvard and Oxford. Dr. Sharma is widely recognized for his thought leadership in financial innovation, policy reform, and sustainable development. His views have been cited in the Indian Parliament, the Associated Press, International Herald Tribune, Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, India Today, The Economic Times, etc. We are delighted to have you with us today, sir. We now request Ms. Anushri Sharma to present a token of appreciation to Dr. Manoranjan Sharma.
We are honored to welcome Mr. Sanjay Chadda, former Additional Secretary, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India, and currently the Director of Public Policy for India and South Asia at Uber Technologies and board member of AMTZ. With over 3 decades of distinguished service, Mr. Chadda has held leadership roles across the Government of India, including the Ministries of Commerce, Power and Railways, where he played a pivotal role in shaping trade policy, infrastructure development, and public-private collaboration. At Uber, he continues to drive transformative conversations at intersection of mobility, technology, and sustainability. Thank you, sir, for joining us today. We now request Ms. Sharma to present the token of gratitude to Mr. Sanjay Chadda.
We now invite Ms. Anushri Sharma to kindly take the session forward and begin the panel discussion. Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. It's an absolute pleasure to be here today attending this forum. Thanks to IMI and the Economics Club for inviting us and setting up such an insightful forum and a fantastic panel here to discuss the economic growth at crossroads, navigating energy, ecology, and intelligence. So, throughout the theme, we'll focus on energy, ecology, and intelligence as key drivers of economic growth. And we'll also reflect how these three forces are shaping economies, transforming business growth models, industries, employability, and leadership. And something that I'm more interested to hear from our panelists here is also how emerging markets like India can create growth or can grow in ways which is not only future ready but also resilient and inclusive. So, without further ado, let me invite our panelists. And thank you so much for the introductions. But I would just like to hear from a panelist about what kind of work that they are doing, some of the priorities you are focusing on, and how it relates to the theme that we are discussing today. So, Abhijit, maybe we'll start from you.
I think I am here, audible. Yes, first of all, thanks to the Economics Club of IMI. And at 9 o'clock in the morning, I didn't expect this much of a crowd. So, thank you for coming. But before that also, I have to say that I am getting very hopeful about the future of the country because, future of the country is in good hands. So that's a good thing. And then to answer the question that Anushri is asking, because essentially, if we go by the current buzz, then of course, everybody will say artificial intelligence. By intelligence, I mean, you are actually talking about artificial intelligence, AI. But if you really ask me, then I would say all three. All three are shaping. You can't rank quantitatively. It is very difficult. I believe it is impossible to figure out which one is shaping the most. That's I would say kind of an impossible task to figure it out. Why I am saying so? Because for three reasons basically. For one. So energy has always been, the decider of global business. Or for that matter, if you ask me, forget about everything else. Because if you see the history of US elections also, I am not naming any companies because I don't want to, get into any kind of legal, trouble. But the point is that those who know, they all know that ultimately all the multinational oil companies, they have a huge stake, for example, in US. And same thing goes true for all kinds of elections. So why we are talking about energy? Because earlier it was fossil fuel, definitely. To put it as briefly as possible, now the next in line, the next hegemon in the line, and then which is China. So China does not have any oil. China does not have any oil. So in the last 7, 8, 10 years, they have meticulously and very quickly, they have built entire, I would say, dominance. If you put it, the estimates, they differ, definitely. But even if you go by conservative estimate, then 70, 80, 90% dominance in the entire, not only in rare earth material, in all kinds of critical mineral and everything, if you add up the refining capacity also. Of course, not only in mining capacity. Minings are done, I would say, across the world. Of course, Indonesia is there, the regular countries like Chile, Peru, all those are there in Latin America. Then, of course, you have huge places like in Congo. So obviously, everything is coming because, it is one of my colleagues in the current place where I am working, Chintan Research Foundation. She, in fact, came out with a paper, and while reading that, I found out that very interesting kind of a thing. Belgium, can you just imagine? Belgium is importing, some amount of rare earth material from Congo, And then it is actually one of the biggest exporters of that particular rare earth mineral to India. So that is how everything is getting reshaped. That is number one. So possibly you got the drift, what I am trying to say. So obviously this will also shape the business. The not only global business, even the local business will be shaped by that. Ecology goes without saying. We will have a huge round of talks and conversation on that. So I am not getting there. So then, of course, the entire climate change, and we have our target is 2070, for net zero. But the problem is that after President Donald Trump came in, he thinks that climate change is a hoax. So obviously, my own feeling is that all these net zero targets will get pushed. They will get postponed. Then artificial intelligence, all of you know. Then I'm not getting into there. But then of course all these three are actually somehow shaping the entire, the whatever global or local business you say.
Thanks, Abhijit, for sharing that. It's basically you are saying that it is not one force, but it's the culmination of all the forces that we need to balance. Thanks for sharing that. Akshita, would you like to share briefly about your role and how do you feel that your role, the work that you are doing, is connected with the discussion that we have and some of the trends that you are seeing?
Sure. Thank you, IMF and the Economics Club for setting up this panel. It's a diverse group of people, so I'm sure even within us we'll find different viewpoints. But to your question, so I'm an economist at NIIF, which is the National Investment and Infrastructure Fund. It is an alternative investment fund that invests in infrastructure and other private equity sectors in India. And we pool in global capital to come into India and invest in these sectors with us. I am an economist. I lead the macro research function, as the lady had kindly introduced me. So to your question on how my role and how I look at it ties in with the theme today, I think I bring in the investment perspective and being an actual infrastructure investor perspective to the table, hopefully today. And yes, the theme I think is bang on energy, ecology, and intelligence. I think we see that playing out even when the investment teams in our organization are making decisions on how to sustainably invest in sectors which are traditionally have not been previously. So the way in which even our organization is set up is such that ESG, for example, plays a very important role even before we make an investment decisions, and it's not an afterthought, for example. So I think that lens is something that I'd be very glad to bring in today. Yeah.
Thanks, Akshita. Anushree, please go ahead.
Hi, good morning, everyone, and thank you for making the time on a Sunday morning. So I'm Anushree Bansal. I'm the senior economist at MasterCard with a focus on Asia Pacific, particularly in South Asia. And I've been an economist all my life, spanning nearly 19 years of my career. I've worked in consulting, in the financial services, and now with MasterCard. At MasterCard and at the MasterCard Economic Institute, we specialize in looking at data and insights at a hyperlocal and hyper-frequency basis. And this we can do because of the power of MasterCard spending data. So what we really do is we merge the macroeconomic trends with how consumers and businesses are behaving. And this is in particular very much in line with what we're going to discuss today, because the three pillars that we are discussing in terms of digital technology, ecology, and energy tie up and are shaping the way consumers are purchasing or spending, the way they are, for example, thinking about ecotourism or thinking about a company that believes in a particular kind of ESG is driving, especially for the younger generation, especially for you guys, you are looking at purchasing or spending in a particular company. And it is also shaping how businesses are transacting. And of course, as Akshita said, that they also keep that in mind when they are doing these businesses. So I think they all do really tie in. So thank you.
Thanks, Anushree. Manoranjan, please help us, what are some of the things that you are observing in the kind of work that you do?
Well, ma'am, thank you for having me with you here. I've been working in various areas of macroeconomy which focus on banking and finance, Indian economy, global ramifications, repercussions. Also, for a long time on sustainable development. So, when you speak of sustainable development, I think all the three elements which you have isolated and identified here subsume. So, I think this gives me some kind of a entrance to this club. Thank you.
Thank you. Sanjay, over to you.
Thank you, Akshita. Thank you, IMI, for having me over. Let me just begin by complimenting you because about 26 years ago, when I was at FMS, trust me, even wild horses could not drag us on a Sunday morning for a lecture. The threat of falling grades did not work, and I think you're a much more disciplined generation, so my congratulations to you. I come from a background where over 3 decades, when I was young, we had 2 options. We were always told that, join the government. It's a very stable job. So like a good son at 21, I was a civil servant. Worked 3 decades there. And then I switched over to the private sector. I worked for Uber. So in my 3 decades with the government, I have worked with the railways, power, Ministry of Power, that is, as a director, and as in Ministry of Commerce and Industry, where I dealt with trade. Incidentally, I have the dubious distinction of being the chief negotiator of the India-US trade package, which was started in Trump 1.0. Very benign then, and now you must be hearing it every day in the news. It was very different back then, because today it's the threat of tariffs which is driving us to the negotiating table. It was a more even-handed and balanced approach then. And just to tell you how my present job at Uber works. So public policy is a job where you have to make the company understand what policy and regulation is all about. And you have to make the government understand that don't stifle growth. Make sure that companies are able to do well and take advantage of good policies. I'll give you an example, practical example here. When I joined in 23, everywhere we went to, there was a talk of EV transition. And my top management was totally, India didn't have an ecosystem. We had only one EV called Tigor. And the range was just 125 kilometers. A taxi runs much more than that in a day. And the management was totally, that we can't invest in it. The time is not ripe. Now, the policy side, there was a big pressure. We were living in the most polluted city in the world, unfortunately. And we had to convince the management that, look, you will have to show intent. And in 23, we launched what was called Uber Green with a lot of policy funds. So, you play the bridge that you can't wait for the technology to become perfect. You can't wait till everything is developed. You'll have to take some business risks. And risk taking is all about what you have to do in this changing environment. Today, change is the only constant. So you have to work towards getting to understand that which technologies you have to place bets. It's a complete risk-return trade-off. So everything that you do would be harboring around making the right bets and showing the right intent. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sanjay. I think you wonderfully, set up the context and really pulled out the essence of the theme that we're discussing. Change is the only constant. And this is what the topic is about. So moving forward, Abhijit has really wonderfully put it that it's not just one force. It's the convergence of all these 3 forces: energy, ecology, and intelligence. Now, maybe I'll just start with energy, and we take a deep dive into energy transition. A lot of economies are moving towards renewables. They are decarbonizing. There is an added pressure from the clients, from the boards, and you have to cut your carbon footprints. You need to decarbonize your entire value chain, right? So in this situation, what are some of the challenges that businesses are facing while managing the short-term cost as well as maintaining their long-term goals? How do business really maintain this growth while managing the shift? So, if Akshita, would you like to go ahead since you come from that background?
Sure. No, thank you. This is actually a constant battle in the investment committees as well. While I know the question that you are asking is also for businesses who are, so we invest in renewables and other energy transition sectors. But to your question, I'll come to that aspect as well, and how businesses who are not in this sector itself and how they have to transition. But just putting my lens as an investor in these sectors, even for us, as I initially mentioned, to think about how energy transition and the targets that the government has now laid out, and something that Sir had here kindly also mentioned, the businesses will always look at it from a profit maximization point of view. That would be obvious. I mean, businesses won't run otherwise, right? I mean, that is a reality. But there is a high upfront cost that one has to bear, even as an investor in these sectors. Setting up, say, an ESG team itself is a cost center for a business that has perhaps no business, and perhaps they can just get away with cutting corners and maximizing their returns in whichever sector they may be. They can do that, but I think what we are seeing now is a conscious change in culture, where sustainability is a focus. And I not just say that because we do that as well. What has happened is, with the government also putting in a lot of either policy frameworks or mechanisms, or the kind of public-private partnership that they are coming up with for some of these sectors, say the PLI schemes, again, not just in infra, right? Now we are at critical mining and other sectors that are of strategic importance. Those de-risk the capital that needs to come in. What that does is it makes it easier for businesses to make a decision and go to their investment committees and say that we are still able to make commercial returns. We are still also able to make sure that our sustainability goals are met. I think that culture change has come in, and what that has also led to is a lot of global capital and a lot of global patient capital. So a lot of sovereign wealth funds and pension funds, a lot of Canadian, Australian pension funds are coming into India because they see that change happening on the ground, and making sure that they work with businesses, with companies who have that vision as well. On-ground reality implementation will always be a challenge, but because of the incentive that the big capital that needs to come in, and the companies need that financing as well, what that means is that companies end up creating their own sustainability goals or ESG policies, and that would mean that you're not just creating infrastructure, but it's more sustainable. So the sustainability aspect of it is sort of like a DNA when you're making a business decision. Yeah, I hope I answered that question.
Absolutely. And in fact, I was doing this research and we surveyed a lot of C-suite across Asia Pacific. And one of the challenges they mentioned that, we are ready to invest in sustainability, but it's just that the cost of, coming out with a product is so huge that we cannot implement any product until and unless we get investment from organizations like yours. So I feel there's a huge importance when it comes to collaboration among organizations like yours who are investing in these kind of businesses to come up with the products. There needs to be a collaboration from the government through policies and mechanisms. So that's really helpful answer. Sanjay, I'll come to you because your organization is also part of it. Being a cab hailer organization who is also now moving towards e-mobility. So what are your views about in this energy transition challenges that you are facing or addressing as part of it?
Thank you so much, Akshita. As was mentioned, if you look at the core challenge today, we are straddled between the two S curves. Do we fund the new capital intensive future, or do we look at our stable cash cows and the stable industrial base? Now, here I'll just quote Pawan Munjal, who was the CEO of Hero Corp. You know that we were all being pushed towards transiting to EVs. EV penetration in cars and three-wheelers has been very low. But in two-wheelers, surprisingly, we had a much higher penetration. So when Hero moved into EVs, he was asked, he says, are you now going to become an EV company? And he said, we are not abandoning petrol. We are just straddling the two S-curves. So anything that you do, the transition is important. If you look at NTPC, when I was in the Ministry of Power, 70% of our generation, energy, I'm not calling capacity, just the energy generation, was on coal-based. Today also it is more than 50%. Why? Because it is very cheap. A coal-based power source is very cheap. NTPC has moved to solar, it has moved to renewables, but it does hold on to the large coal base because you cannot transition overnight. You need those cash cows to fund the new capital intensive infrastructure. So for every company, it's going to be a challenge. We went into AVs in a big way. I don't know how many of you are aware of autonomous vehicles. We were the first to launch with Google, the cars. China was the first to launch. Again, some bit of successes in the technology, some bit of things which technology, people thought the car would be unsafe because it might go and hit somebody. Unfortunately, the car is so safe that technology has made the car safer than any other car. The problem is now that it is so safe that it senses any movement, it stops. So what people do is that if you just stand in front of the car stopped. Today, you don't step in front of a car because you fear that the car will hit you. When the AV comes and you know that the car can't hit you, you'll just not let the autonomous vehicle run. So autonomous vehicles are itself, technology is something that we have to place our bets on. So as a company, when we look at transition, what you mentioned in EVs, two-wheelers are available in the market. They are better placed. You have battery swapping, which is easily available in two-wheelers. A two-wheeler has a smaller battery, you can swap it. Most of the ride-hailing companies are looking at it from an angle where we can transition. Four-wheeler EVs still have a range issue. The high runs are very, very expensive. Government policies are in place. But what tends to happen is when the government does enforcement, then it becomes an issue. So when we go to the government, we always say, more carrot, less stick. If you're going to say that from tomorrow, don't run anything other than EVs, the company will go, everybody will fail. So you have to make sure that the system moves alongside. And I think in two-wheelers, we are doing pretty well on EV transition. The fact that every year Grab will be enforced during this season is also a certainty. So we have to make sure that how do we, look at what's going to happen, how are we going to transition. It's just that if we can get our policies and the government and the industry together, the transition would be smoother, it would be successful, and the hiccups along the way would be much less.
Absolutely. And I think you very valid mentioned this point that we cannot completely transition into it because especially our India as a nation, we really have to be very mindful about including everyone. Not everyone can afford, EV, right? So this is a point that we'll touch later, but I'll come to Manoranjan sir. Sir, you have been into this industry for long. You have been working around sustainable development. So what are your views about energy transition, the challenges of managing short-term cost and long-term benefits out of it, and how do really businesses go about addressing it?
Thank you, ma'am. I think it's an extensive question. When you look at the broader concept of sustainability, there are several aspects to it, aspects which have become buzzwords: environmental pollution, degradation, climate change. Everything gets subsumed in that broad category called sustainable development. In view of the semantic difficulty, there are a lot of confusion. So let me clarify. I think about 40 years back, the Brundtland Commission identified sustainable development as development which promotes economic development without compromising the interest of future development. So we have to look at some kind of a golden mean. We have to harmonize. It's commonly believed that there is some kind of a contradiction, there's some kind of a dichotomy between the goals of economic development and that of sustainable development, climate change and all that stuff. But we have done some kind of a work, and we find that in the ultimate analysis, both these can move in tandem. Both these goals can be complementary. India stands as a remarkable example. When the global economy is growing something like 3.1%, we have been growing consistently at about 6.5, 7.2%. This is one side of the story. As a popular Hindi number, I think there was a dialogue in Om Shanti Om Shah Rukh Khan, picture bhi baki hai mere dost. So the other side of the picture is that we have done remarkably well in this transition to sustainable development. Sanjeev worked in power, other ministries. So you look at the government data, you look at IMF, World Bank, OECD. India stands as a remarkable example. We are already at 1/3 of production of renewables. Obviously, we have a goal to move quickly up to 50%. That will take some time, some doing, some effort, some investment. But we are certainly on the right path, and we have shown the world how to go about it.
Thank you so much, sir. That's really an optimistic picture, and I'm sure all the business and the government are really doing their best to move in the forward direction. But across all the answers that you mentioned, there is a big picture that is being posed by the ecological factors, be it urbanization, the population growth. Abhijit you mentioned about climatic impact, right?
That last one, if I may add something.
Absolutely.
So, in the last one, actually, I will just pick up what Sanjay said. That he actually picked up very few, very important kind of, issues. The one is that, the entire green transition. Yes, right. All of us, we can see that the EV scooters are selling more than EV cars. You were right, because price is a very big factor and other kind of things. But here, what actually the macro policy matters, because there are not many takers of a typical Keynesian macroeconomics, and the even at a broad macro level, the policy making and something like that. But here comes because possibly I am selling that angle, and because I work in that area. So the point is that there are so many things, I don't want to get into the nitty-gritties of it, but then the point is that, the charging infrastructure, because if you run a car and then you are stranded, chargeless within the road and you can't do anything about it, then of course you are not going to buy it. The point is that there will be in the in-between period, of course there will be some amount of, I would say, dependence on the fossil fuel. Dependence on the fossil fuel will never be zero, because that's a very unpopular opinion. But the way I see it, that even hypothetically, if I feel that by whatever, 2070 or 2080, if we are becoming a net zero kind of an economy, but even then there will be some amount of dependence on fossil fuel or the normal fuels. Forget about everything else. The point is that think about electricity. That if there is an emergency and you don't have enough solar power, you don't have enough wind power, yes, you can say that with battery will get improved and then we'll be able to store or something like that. But even then, I believe in the margin itself, some amount of fossil fuel will still be there, possibly in the entire century. So that is one way of looking at it. And second point that I want to make is that policy. What government actually does about it. They are also actually, I will pick up from what Sanjay said, that I can see it in front of my eyes. Because even a year back, there was this solid policy backing of EVs, kinds of EV cars or EV two-wheelers or even EV three-wheelers. But right now, there is a kind of a tussle which is going on from the hybrid, the entire hybrid sector. And the idea is that hybrid sector is lobbying for the similar or almost the same incentive as EVs. And EVs are opposing that. The EV makers are opposing that. So these kind of tug of war will keep on, going on. And the third thing that I will, very briefly, I will say what Sanjay was mentioning as autonomous cars are basically driverless cars. Basically driverless cars. There, in fact, in an economy like India, there are other repercussions because what I am trying to say, forget about everything else. The current Minister of Road and Highways, Mr. Nitin Gadkari, he once said that we can't have driverless cars here because many people are employed as drivers. So in a hugely surplus, labor surplus economy like ours, we forget about even thinking about it. If it is left to me, then I will not introduce it. So there are a lot of other kind of things are also involved. So obviously the entire transition will involve a lot of upfront costs for the business and other kind of things. But beyond that also, consistency of policy, that business will not get. That is the short point that I am trying to make is that there will be a lot of going back and forth, flip-flops and other kind of things. And there lies the entire utility of the policy professionals like Sanjay.
No, absolutely, Abhijit. And correct me if I'm wrong. Asia as an economy is a lot dependent on fossil fuels, right? And it would take a lot of time to move from fossil fuels or energy sector to other forms of it. So I think the way forward is to not just depend on fossil fuel, but to diversify your needs to other forms of energy.
Absolutely.
Going back to the next question, we have been talking about energy transition, and now energy transition cannot exist in isolation. There are a lot of ecological factors that impacts this transition. It could be, like I mentioned, urbanization. Climatic push is actually making a case for energy transition. Then there are a lot of pressure on the resource, right? There's a lot of constraints on usage of resource. So how these ecological pressures are really redefining the economic growth, how it is impacting the growth, and how can policymakers, I will invite the perspectives from policymakers as well as the business, how they can really address these situations. Akshata, you did mention about funding all these initiatives. Would you like to take share your perspectives on this?
Sure. You mentioned three different things. One is the pressures on the resources, the ecology itself, urbanization, and climate risk. I'll probably tackle the latter two right now. Urbanization, I think there are various estimates, right? Right now, most of the Indian population is in the rural areas. Of course, the semantics of how rural and urban is also defined, I'm not going to get into that. But with estimates that a majority of our population, more than half of the population by 2040 or 50, when India, around 2047, I think is when we are also going to reach 100 years of independence. I think more than half of our population will be is expected to be in urban areas, right? We see cities expanding, we see Delhi expanding, Mumbai expanding, more and more airports being added. So the pressures on resources, of course, is a reality. But again, various estimates on how much infrastructure is also needed for catering to them. Again, estimates that more than half of the infrastructure that is required for this new urban population or newer urban areas has not been created yet. So there's a lot of opportunity in that sense while the government has limited capacity and resources, and they do as much as they can while being fiscally prudent. There is a big big play for the private sector also to come in, and you already start seeing that. To your point on climate risk, which is again an integrated part of this, on how do you create infrastructure while being mindful of the realities of climate change. As an example, even for on how we look at it, so as an infrastructure investor, say highways, we invest and bid for highways and manage the tolls and national highways, right? While the road has been constructed already, because we have a specific focus on ensuring that we cater to the ESG policy that we have and the IFC principles that we've signed up for. Just in managing that few kilometers of an highway, we ensure we undertake even studies on climate risks on, say, even that stretch over the next 5 years, while again forecasting has a lot of issues and it's not always perfect, but just to get a sense on whether culverts should be created here, what kind of exits need to be provided for a scenario where the probability might be really low. We've started undertaking those climate risk studies as well before and when we start managing a road asset. And that was the point that I was also trying to make even before, that as and when more and more private capital comes in and they start adhering and sort of ingraining not just ESG but sustainability as a practice in their own DNA, you start looking at all of this as a part of your project itself. While yes, it is an added cost, but then you see the returns that you could make over and above beyond all of this. But all of this gets integrated. So we've started seeing slight changes in how even businesses like ours, investment funds like ours, have started making changes in how we even manage and operate some of these infrastructure assets. So to take care of the climate risks, which is a reality, we start working with even universities and think tanks to undertake research on what could be not just for our specific portfolio companies, but for certain regions in India which we think might be more vulnerable, collaborate with the government on that, since Ministry of Finance and the Government of India is an investor at an IF as well. So we get that opportunity to also liaise with them and sort of give them the feedback on the ground realities on how perhaps policy push could also be required in certain areas and certain sectors which may need support in making sure that we are able to create that ecosystem where your increased urbanization as well as you're taking care of the risks that come with climate changes that we are seeing and we will continue to see, unfortunately, over the next few years.
Thanks, Akshita. So I see this interplay of, the funds, the measurable goals, and as well as, the policy, which can really push the growth trends. But I'll come to Sanjay now. Sanjay, you have been talking about all these pressures that is pushing the energy transition. But apart from energy transition, when we talk about ecological pressures, what are some of the challenges that business are facing or prioritizing to solve in the next coming years?
Thanks, Sakya. The one thing which is very clear is that we need policies which can mitigate cost. Now, how things are structured can make a very big difference. I'll give an example. The government for years was promoting solar power plants. But if you look at the REWA model, I don't know how many of you are aware of REWA. Madhya Pradesh was very rich in coal till it got bifurcated and the coal went to Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh was left high and dry, as they put it. So Madhya Pradesh thought of making a very large, ultra mega solar power plant. Now, what you need to understand in power is that there is a risk associated with land acquisition. There is a risk associated with selling of power, which is usually done through power purchase agreements. So they partnered with Solar Energy Corporation of India and one of the state utilities, and together they acquired the land, signed power purchase agreements with Delhi Metro, which is a very stable power user. Delhi Metro is a very good paymaster. They never, they never default like the states do. So they mitigated the payment security risk, and they tied in a 3-tier mechanism wherein there was a letter of credit of 1.25 months payable. A letter of credit means that if I default in paying you, you have access to those funds immediately for your liquidity. The second was a state government guarantee, which is not really the best, but still, and a fund. What happened was that in this bidding, the power price for solar came 2.97 rupees per kilowatt. Levelized means over 25 years, 3 rupees 30 paise. This made solar viable on its own. And what was the government doing prior to that? Giving a capital subsidy of 1 crore per megawatt, or 15% of the capital cost. And the prices that were coming were 4.5 rupees. So it's not just that you put in money, it's how you de-risk the project. That's very important. If you can de-risk in the right manner, the private sector will find its confidence in investing and will come. So structuring is really, really, really important on these things. If you want to look at from Uber's perspective, we have been always trying to tell the state government and the central government that in the NCR, every time a commercial vehicle crosses a border, it goes to say Noida for a pickup. You book a cab, Uber or a Rapido or Ola. There is 100 rupees which is built into the crossing over. Same 125 rupees if it goes to Gurgaon. Now, if you can just make this zero for the electric vehicles, it gives me a huge advantage in running cost. So more than the capital cost, it's the running cost. Can you build the right incentives which will make it a commercially viable decision for me to invest in that? So that is where I think, and I'll just add to Abhijit's point, you made a very right point on AVs, because when Uber said that where all do we launch AVs, I was the first one saying that India is not the right place. One, it'll never run on the road. You haven't seen an Indian driver. We do gap driving. We don't do lane driving. And the second is that if the AV is not trained in road rage, then most probably you'll have a broken AV lying out there. So India, and of course, the more important economic point that we have drivers, we have a huge amount of people dependent on, more than 1 million people operate on Uber platform alone. So my point here is that you have to structure something where the confidence is built. You have to de-risk it for adoption.
No, I couldn't agree more with what you mentioned about de-risking the investments. I mean, there's a lot of expectations from business to come up with, products which are sustainable, which is affordable, accessible to everyone, and no one should be left out of it. But again, until and unless the governments or the policymakers are not willing to take the risk of it or de-risk the investments, I think it would never be able to push the business in the right direction and adopt sustainability completely. But thank you so much for that point, Sanjay. Abhijit, do you have a different lens to this?
Not many things, because but I would rather say that yes, it is generally fashionable to criticize the policymakers, particularly in the government. But then the point is that if I take forward the last sentence that you just now said, the point is that even within the government, the people who are actually making the policies, they are not very sure, because we don't know that what will work and what will not work. And yes, the flexibility, or I would rather say nimbleness, of policy making, which is required in this kind of a situation, is broadly missing. Unfortunately, there is no doubt about it. We have to adapt to that. And of course, the businesses are also somehow getting affected by it. There is no doubt about it. And that's why when, earlier when I was talking about some amount of, consistency in policy making, so that is what business will look at. Ultimately, no business likes any kind of inconsistency. That you say something today and then 6 months upfront you change it, and then I have to look at my entire supply chain, entire cost structure in a different way. Nobody wants to do that. So it's a difficult time, but I believe I am still optimistic because everybody is figuring it out.
Absolutely. Now we'll move to a topic, I think, which I don't think a day goes by without discussing this. It's about AI and digital transformation. And when we talk about AI, digital transformation, we are already seeing and talking about what all it can bring to the table. We are looking at positive impact in productivity, in efficiency, how it is really enabling businesses to capture on the new markets and to cater to the new needs of the population. But at the same time, we are looking at job cuts. We are, I mean, at least from my, my research says that a lot of these job cuts are also seen at a blue collar level. Then when we talk about technology transformation and shift toward sustainability, a lot of time these vulnerable groups are excluded from this transition. So my question to the panel is, how we can leverage data, AI, to really create growth which is inclusive and which takes everyone along. I will first get to Anushri because recently we are doing this all study around 13 countries in APAC, and we found that when it comes to AI adoption and how industries are working on to really scale those efforts and create something meaningful, we saw financial industry across all these 13 countries way ahead of other industries. So Anushri, would you give your perspective from the financial perspective, lens?
Sure, Anutri. I think, first of all, just that the topic of discussion sort of also alludes to the fact that emerging markets are asymmetrically impacted by what we are discussing today. So be it climate change, be it sort of changes in ecology and digitization and artificial intelligence, emerging markets are asymmetrically impacted. And businesses in these markets, as well as globally, need to look at things in a perspective of being sustainable for their operations as well, which means that they have to look at adaptability, flexibility, digitization, and localization. So these things need to be kept in kept in mind in terms of the broader topic that we are discussing. Now, coming to the point on AI, I think one thing that we need to look at is that everybody right now perceives the AI as something negative in terms of jobs, but let's begin with the positives first. India sort of established the Jandhan Trinity, the JAM Trinity, and what that has led to is the digitization and efficiency gains that are leapfrogging growth in the tier 2, tier 3 cities. So right now, and our data shows that through the MasterCard Economic Institute, that growth in consumer spending and businesses development is not now limited to the tier 1 cities. It has leapfrogged to the tier 2, tier 3 cities, which has taken place due to these government efforts, which were then sort of expounded through the pandemic. And what this has also led to is financial inclusion. Access to finance has become extremely easy, or is becoming easy as we speak, for these consumers and businesses which did not have that access as soon as people start coming into the digitization network. For businesses, it is now easy to access working capital requirements. And all of this is happening at the helm of technology and AI. So something that we need to keep in mind when we think of technology, technology is always a double-edged sword. Now, coming to your point on jobs, IMF has taken out a lot of research which shows that AI will impact markets which have more white-collar jobs to begin with. And it will also lead to this sort of a displacement in jobs. So we will see a displacement effect. We will see a replacement effect where new jobs will also be created. And then overall, in the long term, it is possible, the jury is still out there, but it is possible that it leads to an overall growth and productivity of an economy that sort of uplifts everyone. So there are these sort of double-edged sword. Of course, in the short term, we are seeing massive job losses. A lot of companies have announced job cuts recently in order to maintain their P&Ls. But from a long-term horizon, whenever technology is introduced, be it the cartwheel or be it the calculator, and now we have AI, there is always this state of flux, which again then brings me to the point that businesses have to be extremely adaptable and flexible as we move through this massive state of flux.
Thanks, Anushri. And, since we are talking about the jobs, I see that, I know there is a lot of skepticism when it comes to jobs. Okay, will I get replaced? How do I go, prepare myself? And especially when we are at a forum where, we are here in the university where students are going to become the next leaders. I would want to, understand how do we prepare our students for the next, phase of growth, which is at the convergence of technology, sustainability. Maybe, Manoranjan sir, I would like to, invite you to answer that. How do, academia or employers or policymakers really look at this, you know, making our next future leaders prepared for the next phase of growth?
Well, ma'am, this is a complex and extensive question, but I think basically the way forward, we have to embed the concept of sustainability in the wider course curriculum, dissemination of information on a large scale. Some universities, particularly in the United Kingdom, have done pioneering work in this kind, and they have shown the cross-cutting strategic significance. This could be replicated, but this is still something like a work in process. There are a lot of other things, nitty-gritty, there are a lot of other things which need to be carefully thrashed out. But going forward, I think the educational institutions could also show the way. As leaders in their domain, they can reduce the carbon footprint, they can show the way in moving to more sustainable forms and manifestations of energy, and this could be taken up as a role model. They could do some kind of a path-breaking research. So all this is something like we have taken some steps, but these are more of in the nature of a baby steps. This needs to be given a much sharper impetus by all stakeholders with a coordinated and concerted manner, with a sense of urgency, so that we are able to meet the challenges of the present and the expectations of the future.
Thank you very much, sir. Sanjay, would you like to add something? And anything that, you can share examples or initiatives from your own organization, how you are preparing the future leaders?
Yeah, thank you. I always love anecdotes. Of course, there was a statement made by one of the heads of AI company which said that AI will change humanity more profoundly than the invention of electricity. Now, this is a very big statement. We know what electricity did for humanity, but only time will tell whether that statement bears out or doesn't bear out. But yes, like you said, it's created apprehensions in the mind. A few months ago, the big tech companies, the 4 big tech, got some internal farman that why do we need so many people? Why are we not using AI more? I kept telling my policy team, you're safe, you don't worry, the policy job does not. Till we got a farman saying that you can generate reports, you can do this, and why do you need so many people? So, my team got a little apprehensive. They said, are we looking at layoffs here? So I went to the tech. Her name is Megha. I said, Megha, what are you doing? What is this AI stuff? She says, you're telling me the first job to be going will be that of the coder, because the AI writes much better codes than anybody else does. So I said, then why this apprehension? But along with usage of AI, there is another whole new stream being created on usage of AI. Today, using AI, a lot of creativity can be done. There will be a lot of scope for people who start using AI in their work. Today, if my people, there was an interview recently we held, and the candidate came up with brilliant answers and brilliant presentation. And the first question he was asked was this completely AI generated? Or did you put some efforts into it? So usage of AI is very important. But there is a fine line between creativity, plagiarism, and AI, use of AI. So how do you use it ethically is going to be today you find, I had a group of mine where a guy posted his photograph of younger days petting a tiger. And, everybody was saying, how did you do this? And he was a techie. So AI has plenty of uses. I'll give you an example. Some time ago, when we were transitioning, there was an engineer who was working on thermal power, and then he got laid off, and he was doing retraining to get into solar. So I said, so you lost your job? He said a very nice sentence. He says, I didn't lose my job. I'm just changing voltages. So he says, what AI is going to do is you would all have to start using AI. There is no way out. You'd have to use AI in creative ways. And trust me, when you get your jobs, you'll find a lot of pressure on adoption of AI. And how do you use it effectively? So this thing to you would be that we are only looking at AI being used to replace human beings. We are not looking at many other ways in which AI can be used to provide creative solutions, the way the film world is going to be used, the way new concepts are coming up using AI. So there would be opportunities. There would be opportunities which would be created. And there would be, of course, a loss of jobs in many other ways.
Right. I just want to add here to Sanjay's point is that AI is enhancing productivity in corporate jobs. Something that we could do in 6 hours is being done literally in 6 minutes. And there is creativity involved. So, and you can't escape it. So I think the better way, and this is again quoting some people, is that to become subject matter experts. Because AI also needs people to train it. So it is to get into if I have an 11-year-old son, and given the way things are changing and the flux that we are in, the only thing that I can sort of guide him to is to be adaptable and become an expert in what you're doing. So I think that is what needs to be kept in mind in this sort of changing environment.
Very well said, Anushree. Thanks, Sanjay, for the examples that you quoted, and I completely agree. We are just looking at AI from a very single lens. Okay, we are going to get replaced, but we are not really thinking about how much, how supportive this technology is when we are delivering some projects, when we are working on some analysis. So it's more about how we can leverage AI to our own, productivity, efficiency, and how great work that we could deliver. So I've already got a nudge from our team on the time. So maybe I'll invite each one of you to just, summarize. Yeah, absolutely.
I know, I'm sorry, because you are hard pressed for time, but I am absolutely tempted because I was also teaching for almost 7 years in a private B school. So obviously that habit remains. We can't keep silent. As a teacher, you have to keep on talking about something or the other. So, but here, in fact, I'll try to be as brief as possible. As fate would have it, because in the last week itself in WhatsApp, one good use of WhatsApp, not the bad, general bad use. Some of our friends, we are actually heatedly debating about this entire AI thing. I am a bit of a, I would say, skeptic and having some unpopular opinions, because first I would start by saying that in the current form, the way AI has developed, and this is not my opinion, some of the, not very mainstream, but some of the Silicon Valley CEOs, they actually expressed this opinion. They said that we are not yet very much satisfied with the kind of development AI is having, simply because of the fact that if it's a technical matter, then you have to check it, because AI is making mistakes. For example, in legal matters, and then in legal matters, it has percolated just like anything. People are generating, their case presentation in the AI and then making some wrong and then non-existent kind of case they are actually citing. All these things are happening. Second, I will take what Anushree was saying, that intuitively, she has actually figured out the entire, when she was saying that, that job loss and other kind of things. The point is, this is the argument I was making, that I said that here we are talking about large language model, LLM based artificial intelligence. The goal is to come to AGI, basically artificial general intelligence. That is, I am not a technical guy. There are, better people. I am practically a layman in that. But what I understand with a simple scientific mind is that a lot of development needs to be done into this entire thing. But the major problem is coming simply because of the fact that, and then since 1950s, late 1950s and 60s, We have artificial intelligence, the kind of when actually you are operating have you looked at some of the features that your refrigerator or your ACs, all these things are having? They are artificial intelligence. Of course, there is no other name I can think of. But that category is different from this category which we are now discussing. So obviously a lot of things need to be done, and now the entire debate is coming into people's mind because there has been job losses within the white collar people. So that is what we were just chatting before this thing, and I said that's 15 days back, 20 days back, Google Gemini actually laid off the entire team of language, the LLM trainers that they were using. Yes, on a contractual basis, but it's like, it's a little bit scary, even think about it. The way Google Gemini is now, and it is the way it is operating at this point of time, probably those 200 people have a lot of contribution in that, but all of them are gone. And we are also not sure what kind of jobs are going to come in. Because with computer, with the advent of, everybody is giving the example of when computer came. My mind, I may be wrong, and I really hope, I sincerely wish that I am totally wrong. But in my mind, what I see is, this is something entirely different. Because in computer, at certain level, those who are looking at it in a very minute way, they were realizing that there is hardware, there is software, there will be a lot of software development, so different kind of jobs are coming out. So obviously, blue collar jobs were getting lost since time immemorial. So nobody was talking about it. Here we are talking about the job losses simply because of the fact that white collar jobs are getting lost. So then, here in fact, with my skepticism and with my kind of, I will not say negative, I am still optimistic about a lot of other things. But what I would say that it's an area which is still evolving. We don't know. And it can have profound impact, or it may turn out to be a hoax or something in between. I'll just stop at that.
Thanks, Abhijit. No, it's actually quite a debated topic, and we are still figuring out how to make this work for each one of us. But before we open the, this panel for the audience questions, I would just like to quickly close this discussion and invite each one of you to just share in a word or a line about how people in our audience can go about and prepare for the world ahead. We have been talking about a lot of challenges and how businesses, governments, policymakers, or in fact academia can prepare for it. But what is that one word or in a line, a kind of advice that you would like to give to the audience here who are going to actually get into this world of challenges that we discussed? Abhijit, you.
Yeah, here I'll be, one sentence. For me, it is very, very, very clear. In all the three, energy, ecology, and artificial intelligence, the key is to ensure equality in all these aspects. There is no second way about it. Then only it will be sustainable, then only business will be in total harmony with the society and the government and everything else.
Thanks, Abhijit. Akshita.
No, thank you. I think there was a lot of conversation on AI, which I wanted to add on as well, but I'll spare the horror for everybody. But as the last parting message, I think Sanjayji and Anushi both spoke about it as well. Upskilling will remain, even whether you're a student or even for us, I think all of us would agree. There is a constant upskilling, reskilling required, even when you're at a job 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the line. So be curious. I think that's the only way, no matter what kind of technology comes in. I think all of us are figuring out as well with AI. And instead of artificial intelligence, this is something I had heard somewhere else. Instead of calling it artificial intelligence, perhaps right now we are interpreting this as augmented intelligence. I think that's what everybody was talking about as well. So maybe think of AI as augmenting your existing work, and that's point Anushi also I think made on enhancing productivity. So perhaps I think that's the three phrases that I would want to leave you with. And one last point, I think as a country, we've, of course, AI is very different, but in general, we've seen many transitions happen even before. He was mentioning about computers coming in. I think for a lot of you, this must be before your time, but say around the 99 2000 turnover, right? There was this big debate on what will happen to the software engineers who were just in India changing the date to millennium, because from 99 to 2000 they didn't know. So a lot of the jobs in India was just exactly the Y2K thing. So at that time also there was this debate on what will happen to these jobs. Of course, people upskilled and then figured out and went on to do other things. There will be that transition period. It will be slow and steady perhaps, but just be out there and be curious and keep upskilling. I think that's what I would say.
Thanks, Akshata. That's a really wonderful advice. Anushri?
If I were to give you two words of advice, it would be to be adaptable and to be flexible. In this extremely multipolar world with a state of flux, where we're seeing flux in trade, we're seeing flux in technology, we are seeing flux in businesses and consumer behavior, the only advice to all of you and the new generation, and including to us, is to be extremely adaptable and flexible.
Manoranjan, sir.
Well, ma'am, I think they've correctly identified three key themes: energy, technology, and economy. Going forward, there has to be a confluence, a convergence of these things. But before we move to that kind of a confluence or that kind of a convergence, we have to do adequate spade work, due diligence. Otherwise, there are a lot of young people here. So I'm reminded of a very old British phrase, goes back possibly 2000 years back, which says, if you marry in haste, you repent at leisure. So that should not happen. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Sanjay?
Yeah, thank you. I also feel that it's not an either or choice. You need today energy that empowers every household, an ecology that can endure and support our growth, and intelligence, both human and artificial, that is designed to include and not exclude. So inclusivity is something that I believe. Going forward, our path to prosperity is not just going to be defined by how much we build, but how we use our resources, how wisely we use our resources. So we have to decarbonize supply, we have to dematerialize demand, and we have to ensure that we democratize opportunity. I think that would be important going forward. Thank you.
Wonderful, Sanjay. I think there's a lot of advice for all of you. And in fact, Anushri mentioned it's not only for you, but for us as well, because the times are uncertain. Things are changing at a pace that, every other day is a new day. And the right thing to do is to be flexible, to be adaptable, and to be curious. So thank you so much. This was a wonderful conversation, and I personally learned a lot. And I'm sure our audience have learned a lot here, and there's a lot of things that they will have to reflect upon. But before we close, I just want to quickly check if there's any question from anyone for our panelists. Yes, sir, please.
Hello, thank you for this session. So my question is that with the appointment of Trump, are we witnessing a reduced focus or investments in sustainability and renewables?
Okay, I'll start off and maybe you can add on. At least on the ground that we are seeing, while the US has a change in policy, there is a rest of the world as well. Europe continues to making sure that the sustainability is a core part of wherever they invest, even in countries like India, even Australia, even other developed nations or developing nations in Southeast Asia as well. So even from my perspective as an infra investment asset owner, while US is currently a stalemate in that sense, investors, large global institutional investors, and I'm talking about like hundreds and millions of dollars coming in, planning to set up India-focused investment companies and funds, they continue to be gung-ho about sustainability and making sure that wherever they invest, there's climate is a core aspect of their DNA.
Yeah, I'll just add to it because once again, I am selling this entire macros perspective, which very few people do. But then the idea is that yes, the short answer to your question will be yes. There will be, nobody is talking about it right now simply because of the fact he has just come this year. The inauguration was in January, and now look at what he has done in 6 to 8 months of time. So the point is that he believes climate is a hoax, and I'll not mince any word. He is even willing to drill for oil in Alaska, something like that. So anybody who is in charge of the biggest economy in this world, whatever happens, is going to affect the entire calendar, I would say, of the entire net zero and this entire, this green transition, climate change, and everything will go helter and skelter, and it is going helter and skelter. Nobody is talking about the postponement of the calendar because everybody is afraid, because he does not believe in a lot of other things. She was talking about ESG. He does not believe in ESG. He does not believe in DEI, that entire diversity, inclusivity. So, he that does not believe in all these. So he is doing politics, both politics and business, in a different way. He is like doing politics like a businessman and doing business like a politician. So that's what he is currently doing. And we don't know. It's a totally unknown factor. Nobody knows what is going to happen, and his time is going to be up by 2020, I think 9 or 8, 2028. So we have to see. Because
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Morning. Thank you so much for the insightful session. My question is for Sanjay sir. Sir, there was a line quoted towards the start of the session that energy has always been a decider of how the global economy works. So what step has India taken peculiarly to attract investment in green energy projects, since you have been associated with Government of India for over 3 decades now? So, and how is it going to shape the Indian economy in time to come?
Yeah, thank you for the question. See, India has been is now a signatory to the net zero. Of course, the time frame is 2070. There has been a reluctance on our part because, contrary to the popular belief that used to go around in early 2000, that India is a very large polluter. If you look at per capita, we are nowhere near the West. So our refrain is that the West, after having developed all your resources, are now looking at a transition, while we are at a different stage. We are at a stage where energy has to fuel growth. We cannot throw the baby with the bathwater. So we will need a transition which will be longer. We were the last country who kept on building coal because we said price of energy is very important. We have to electrify our rural households. Electricity does not reach every household in India. So it is a situation where you have to draw balances. India made some good progress. I'll give you, in 2006, the government came out with something called Renewable Purchase Obligations, RPO. This meant that all the companies all the discoms had to necessarily buy renewable power. Renewable power was very expensive. Solar was 14 rupees in 2006-07. And I was the biggest skeptic. I said, why are we doing this? But that support and technology success brought down the prices of solar today. Today, solar can compete. So any new technology in its gestation period needs support. And once that support and the technological advancements balance each other, it doesn't succeed in every case. We are still struggling with making ACCs. The government has a PLI scheme for setting up advanced cell chemistry. Why? Because we see this as the future. We know that the oil economy is now on its way down. We also understand that oil, which was the largest traded commodity globally for 80 years, is getting overtaken by electronics. Data is the new oil. So a lot of transition is happening. For us to navigate it, the policy should be such that we are in tandem with the rest of the world. We can't afford to be left behind. We got left behind when the Asian countries started manufacturing. We can't afford to be left behind in this race. This is a new race. And we hope that the government would come out. The policy is always like, I think somebody mentioned, it's always course corrections. You never get it right the first time. You always have to make course corrections. We'll see how it goes.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I know this conversation has been really engaging and wonderful questions being asked, but due to the paucity of time, we would have to close it now. Abhijit, Akshata, Anushri, Manoranjan sir, Sanjay, it has been a pleasure asking all these questions. This has been a very inspiring dialogue, and we look forward to having these conversations in a right direction more. But thank you, everyone. Thank you, IMI and the Economics Club, for inviting us. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anushri, for being a great moderator. Thank you so much.
On behalf of everyone present here, we express our deepest gratitude to all our distinguished speakers for sharing such enlightening perspectives. Your insights on the interplay between energy, ecology, and intelligence have truly expanded our understanding of sustainable economic transmission. A heartfelt thank you to Ms. Anushri Sharma for moderating this discussion with such clarity, warmth, and engagement. We now request Ms. Anushri Sharma to kindly felicitate Mr. Abhijit Mukhopadhyay, Ms. Akshata Kalur, Ms. Anushri Bansal, Dr. Manoranjan Sharma, and Mr. Sanjay Chadda. I would now like to invite Ms. Gurleen Mangat, Joint Secretary of the Economics Club, to present a token of appreciation to Ms. Anushri Sharma. We would also request Ms. Gurleen Mangat to present a token of gratitude from our sponsor Plum to our female guests.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, with this, we conclude the Economic Summit of Conventus 2025. We hope today's dialogue has inspired us to reflect on how the pillars of energy, ecology, and intelligence can together guide a more inclusive and sustainable economic future. We extend a sincere gratitude to our distinguished guests, esteemed faculty and students for making this summit a success. We also extend our heartfelt gratitude to all our esteemed sponsors for their invaluable support in making Conventus 2025, the annual management conclave of IMI Delhi, a grand success. A special thanks to our title sponsor, Bank of Baroda, whose partnership has been instrumental in bringing this event to life. We are equally thankful to our co-sponsor, RPSG, and our Finance Summit sponsor, Indian Bank, for their continued encouragement. Our appreciation also goes to ICICI Bank, banking partner, LIC, insurance partner, HFCL, telecom solutions partner, and STEM Executive Search Private Limited, sustainability partner, for their support in diverse domains. We sincerely thank Key Properties, real estate partner, Phoenix Global, learning partner, Royal Enfield, exploration partner, Vanessa Care, fragrance partner, Plum Loving Body, bath and body care partner, Go Grab, convenience partner, White Heaven, entertainment partner, Fever FM, media partner, for enriching the experience of Conventus 2025. Your collaboration and trust continue to inspire us to make every edition of Conventus bigger, bolder, and better.
As we conclude this enriching session, we invite our esteemed guests and the entire team of the Economics Club to join us for a group photograph.